And Marisol Nava-Bird will be introducing Maria. She came to us from Mississippi. She's a Nampa High School graduate and attended both Utah State University and Provo College. She's the mother of 3 sons and 1 daughter, and she's really excited to be here to introduce Maria. Come on up, Marisol.
Good morning. I get the privilege of introducing who many know my mom as Maria, but of course she has many titles. She's an interpreter, she's a small business owner, she's a daughter and a sister, but my favorite title of her is Mom. For as long as I can remember, she has told us a story about going to the planetarium in the Rio Grande Valley as a 2nd grader, and as she was sitting there at the planetarium and having that kind of experience, she decided she was going to attend college. Recently, we had the opportunity to visit that same area with not only her daughters, but also her grandchildren. And of course, as a wonderful storyteller, she told us all about it, and we could get a sense of where she grew up and also the impact that field trip had on her. My mom was the first and only sibling in her family to attend and graduate from college. Not only did she graduate with a bachelor's, but she recently finished an MBA. My mom never spoke of if we were going to college, it was always where we were going to college. I also grew up watching my mom mentor many young Latinos. And my mom has always shown us, not only in her words, but her actions, to support and give back to others. One of my favorite things now as an adult, and as she worked here at Boise State University for many years, was to see the many students she has taught at Boise State through the camp program pour into my mom. They make time to visit her. They take time on their trips and their study abroads to bring her back gifts. And that to me is just a testament of who my mom is, that they want to continue to be a part of her life long after she was their teacher. And one of my favorite memories with my mom is serving along the side of her as we marched to the Boise Capitol in support of farm worker wages. I was just a teen. It was Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, and I wanted to sleep in. But instead, there I was walking along many supporters, showing others the importance of civic engagement, but not only that, marching along with my mom and realizing later that my mom was always going to stand up for what is right. She also was going to help others who may not be able to know the ways of how to do that. My senior year in high school, I was also able to help my mom in the Latino vote efforts that she was involved in for many years. I have since, as an adult, come back to visit several times and help her in different elections that she has personally either helped with or running as a candidate. She will always assist when she can and how she can in helping the underprivileged and underrepresented get out to vote. I can think of another thing that my mom has pioneered as she ran for state legislator. As a woman, a brown woman, a woman who is not as conservative as those in the state of Idaho, she had those odds stacked against her, but she went up for the task regardless. That has inspired not only me, but many other women to do this great work of representing the underdogs and helping make their voices heard. My mom has been using also her bilingual skills at a very young age. Her parents both spoke Spanish, and as the oldest daughter, she was expected to translate what was needed when the family needed her. And so I have many memories and stories that she has told us as we would travel back to Burley, Idaho from Nampa, and those car rides were spent telling us the many different stories. And so I've often told my children that sometimes you have to put down the phone and hear the stories that my mom has, and she takes that opportunity now with them, with her grandchildren. The last thing I wanted to share about my mom that I consider the most important and lasting impact that she has had for me and my family is the way that she has always had faith and shown us to search for it and apply it. At the young age of 18, she converted from the religion she had grown up with and that was different from her parents and family, and she began asking questions, searching, and she joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, attended a church school, and has remained faithful throughout her life as a member. She has been the pioneer for her daughters and grandchildren. I know I'm a better woman for that brave decision she took at a young age, and it also was an example of how determined she was to find answers and help others along the way. My mom, Maria, has always been my hero, my mentor, and my best friend, and I'm grateful today to share with her the opportunity that you will get to hear her story.
Oh my goodness. It is really, really hard to hear those that you love talk about you. And I apologize. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you and share this space with you. I totally support the Andrus Center's mission to empower the leaders of tomorrow. The Center's mission resonates with me and is so aligned with what is so true and dear to me. How many of you are here because someone once believed in your potential? Today I will share my story of championing many women and some young men with my work, not only here in Idaho, but in the Pacific Northwest and throughout the country. I want to share my legacy purpose, which is reflected in a great part by the recent book, Nosotras, Latinas in Idaho. This had been a personal goal for many, many years, and thanks to Dr. Emily Wakild, and thanks to the 50 amazing women that were willing to contribute, this personal goal finally became a reality and a tangible accomplishment during 2025. The women that are in the book are Latinas, but they are like you in this room. Many have contributed enormously to the state of Idaho. They, like you, have experienced challenges in their educational journeys and their careers, but they, like you, are resilient and have overcome and risen above those challenges. They have succeeded and continue to succeed. Their stories matter, and what they share matters, especially for young women that can learn from their stories. I want to share just a couple of paragraphs by one of those young women who is about to complete her PhD, graduated from Boise State University. Her name is Alondra Hernandez. My elementary school placed me in an English language learning. From then on, I was always in the lowest level for writing, math, and science. This sowed a seed of self-doubt, thinking I was never smart enough. The self-doubt escalated throughout middle school, and a lot of times often remains to this day. Because of this, I never felt good enough at math and science. It bothered me, and I wanted to change. Finally, in high school, I decided to challenge myself and sign up for AP courses and higher level physics and math courses. It felt like a leap of faith, as the school system had been telling me all along these years that these classes were not for me. Although I struggled, I realized my love for learning. I had the opportunity to learn about post-secondary education through various programs like TRIO and AVID. It was not until I visited Boise State University through a weekend-long program called Project Dream for Tomorrow that I saw Latino students pursuing a higher education. My eyes caught a glimpse of something I wanted. The community outreach that was instilled in me at an early age continues as I help underrepresented groups enroll in higher education and help them to believe in themselves. I still encounter many bumps in the road where I questioned whether I belonged at UC Berkeley. But one of my lab mates told me once, quote, "The school didn't just accidentally accept you into the program," end quote. From then on, I shifted my mindset to, quote, "I belong here," end quote. As I continued to work towards my PhD in mechanical engineering at UC Berkeley, whenever self-doubt crept up, I took a step back and remembered that my struggles are nowhere near as difficult as those my parents faced in this country. Although my experiences are different from my parents, we both had to adapt. My father always said, "Si fuera fácil, todos lo hicieran." In English, if it were easy, everyone would do it. Raise your hand if you have ever felt invisible in the place you call home. I was born and raised in South Texas. My US-born dad was born in Catarina, Texas. When he was 5 years old, his family moved back to Mexico. He grew up in General Terán, Nuevo León. If you know Mexico, right, and the state of Nuevo León is just right below Texas. There, he lived in General Terán till he was 13 years old. While he was in General Terán, he had learned baking skills from his oldest brother, who was a baker. And my dad, to this day, makes the best pan dulce, Mexican sweet bread. When his brother moved to Monterrey, which is the capital of Nuevo León, because he wanted to be a baker in the city instead of a small town, my dad followed. There in Monterrey, my dad met my mother. They got married and had a son. Eventually, as a US citizen, my dad legalized my older brother, who was about 15 months at the time, and shortly thereafter, my mom and my oldest brother immigrated to the US. My mom at the time was 5 months pregnant with me. She came to join my dad, who had been living and working in South Texas, living with his oldest brother and his family. The girl from the city went straight to the cotton fields of South Texas. And I often kind of joke that given that I was in her womb, right, those values of hard work and my strong farm worker advocacy, I know that that's when it all started. I was born in September of that year when she had immigrated, and my parents' home base was Edinburgh, Texas. I was born in San Juan. And they continued working in the fields. They would follow the harvest, primarily picking cotton. And eventually, my dad was hired as a baker in Farr. And it was in Farr where a couple of things happened. One, I started kindergarten. And two, I received the first of two great gifts from my mother. My mother taught me to read and write Spanish. She always said, "You were such a curious child." And as I started kindergarten and was starting to read English books, I was puzzled when I would come home and I couldn't read the books that Mom and Dad were reading. So, of course, she explained to me, "Sweetie, you're learning English at school. These are Spanish." And of course, I wanted to learn to be able to read both. So she taught me to do that. I attribute my academic success to being literate in Spanish when I went to first grade and was working to really tackle English, which I continue to do to this day. Both my sister and I attribute my mom's high standard for the Spanish language to our success as certified court interpreters, not only in Idaho, but in a couple of other states. While my mom did attempt to learn English, she was never truly proficient. My dad, who says to this day that he does not know English, reads the English newspapers, reads English magazines, and he can tell you what all is going in the world in the news, but he does not know English, okay? He, like many Spanish speakers, feels most comfortable in Spanish. So during the summers, my parents continued to move around, following the crops, primarily cotton. I was not quite ready to start school when they bought our house, this little pink house. Pink was my mom's, and bright pink was my mom's favorite color. And it's one of my favorite colors too. But they bought our little house in Alamo, Texas, and my dad established a bakery. Remember I told you about that delicious pan dulce? So this is it. And that is where I lived, and that's where I grew up, was in Alamo, Texas, until we came to Idaho when I was a teenager. So what does hard work mean to you? For me, it started at about age 4. The earliest recollections I have was being out in the cotton fields with my parents. My oldest brother, Francisco, and I would help pick cotton when they allowed us to do that. There was one occasion that they did not allow us to do that, and it was because there were snakes in that cotton field. So when we were not allowed to work with my parents, we had to sit in the hot car all day long until they were done working. As you may know, in agriculture, child labor, right, is very different. There are things that are allowed in agriculture for child laborers that are unheard of and would never be allowed in non-agriculture. Fortunately, in 1964, Migrant Head Start began, and then fall of 1967, migrant education program began. This finally allowed children of poor farm workers a place to go instead of being in the fields with their parents. When our family didn't migrate, my 2 brothers and I continued doing field work in the surrounding area by Alamo, Texas. We picked tomatoes, we picked cotton, and we picked bell peppers. And we have so many fun stories about those adventures as these 3 little kids out in the fields. We had to do this work to support the household. Even though my dad owned and operated a bakery, it did not generate enough income to support all of us. After I finished 4th grade, our family started migrating again. And we had, my dad had 2 brothers that were farm labor contractors. One of them worked for farmers in the state of Illinois. The other worked for farmers in the state of Idaho. So that first summer that we migrated, right, it was out of necessity. There wasn't enough money to pay the house payment, the bills, or food for us. So this was the first time, my brother was 11, I was 10, that we actually had to be in the fields full time with my mother and father. We hoed or weeded soybean fields, and we picked tomatoes for Campbell's soup. The work days were really hard because they were 12 to 14-hour days that we were out in the fields. But we got to be with my mom and dad, and we got to listen to their stories. We found out about their childhood, about how they met, and about their siblings, and we would also talk about other relatives that we had in Mexico. We would talk about movies, Mexican movies that we had watched, the best actors and actresses, and the music. So those conversations made the workday go by very quickly. And this taught my older brother and me the value of work. Like Marisol shared, right, I had already decided as a little 2nd grader during a field trip to Pan American University that I was going to go to college. Had no clue. You had to apply. You had to be accepted. You had to pay money. But I was going, right? This was a decision in 2nd grade. So working under the blazing sun, right? Sun up, sun down, just further solidified my goal that I'm going to college, right? And that I'm going to do better in school. I'm going to love school more. I'm going to love learning more. Like I mentioned, I was a little girl of 10 years old. I'm working 12 to 14 hours every day, 6 days a week, 5 to 6 days a week. Most weeks it was 6 days a week. And on the day off, guess what I got to do? I got to wash clothes by hand. And that was really hard work. Every night after we got home from the fields, I also had to wash dishes. I also had to help take care of my younger brother and sister. So it was during, like we saw in the previous slide, this time in Illinois that my mom gave me my 2nd great gift. While she's been gone for 25 years, I will never forget her standing up to the farm labor contractor to demand her wages and her children's wages. It was a late summer night at the Zimmerman Farms outside of Graymont, Illinois. My dad had gone and collected our wages for that week. He comes to our room in that farmhouse where we were being housed and gives my mom the money and the slip of paper where our hours were calculated for that work week. My mom, who was really good at math, recalculates all of the hours that she had recorded and compared it with what we had received and realizes all our wages are not here. She immediately starts talking with my dad and tells him, we are missing wages. And my dad, oh, it's okay, let it be. And my mom, absolutely not. How can you be okay not being paid all of our wages? I cannot believe that you don't think that that's an issue. I have a problem, and our kids work really hard for this money. She marches down because our room was upstairs. She marches down the stairs, goes and confronts the farm labor contractor, who happened to be my dad's oldest brother. And starts telling him, "You've cheated us out of our wages here, and I want our money and my children's money." Of course, he challenges her. I'm in the background listening and observing the exchange, and was just so proud of my mom because she did not back down. He eventually just threw the money at her and told her, "You guys are fired. Get out." We go upstairs, start packing our things, load up the 1959 station wagon, and we leave the farm. This was close to midnight when this happened. As you may know, migrant farm workers have not had and lack a lot of protections. Often, even if there are protections, farm workers are not aware that such protections exist. Like in our case, if a farm worker stands up to the boss, often it leads to retaliation and firing. If housing is provided with that employment, like it was in our case, then you're out of the housing also. It was not until 1980 that I went to work with Migrant Farm Workers Law Unit of Legal Aid Services in Burley, Idaho, that I realized and learned there was a Fair Labor Standards Act law that had come about since 1938, but we didn't know what they were supposed to be doing, right? And I believe that our experiences and that knowledge that I acquired just got me really excited about advocating for farm workers and my passion to stand up to what is right. My shero with my farm worker advocacy is Dolores Huerta, and I think you probably all know about her. A great labor leader and an amazing feminist. In my life, though, my shero is my mom. My mom had the courage to stand up for something that was not right, and I think her example is what has fueled my determination and my work in farm worker advocacy, that it is important to advocate for others and teach others to advocate for themselves. I believe moms, because they really care about the well-being of their children, are not afraid to stand up, and they will stand up to power. In this particular case, I believe my mom was willing to stand up when my dad was not willing or maybe afraid to do so because it involved challenging his oldest brother. How many, or have you ever had to decide between staying silent and doing what's right? My passion for civic engagement, work both in Texas and Idaho, comes from my dad's example. Even though my dad was not willing to stand up to the farm labor contractor, his oldest brother, my dad was willing to stand up for democracy. In the 1960s, Texas, like many other states, had a law which was actively enforced that required non-Caucasian individuals to pay a poll tax to be able to vote. This put my dad, who was a U.S. citizen, is a U.S. citizen, in a position to sacrifice because the poll tax had to be paid by January 31st every year in order to participate in any of the elections, local, state, and federal. But he did it. He is now 93 years old and has never missed an election. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being so committed to something that you never miss a vote for nearly a century? When he learns, Marisol talked about me managing Latino Vote for many years here in Idaho. when he would be with me and he'd be talking to folks and he'd learn that they were a U.S. citizen and that they were not voting, oh my gosh, watch out for this older gentleman. He would start telling them, and every time he did that, I would smile because I would see in him the passion that I know is in me about being actively engaged civically. What is something you will never stop showing up for? His example and my sense for justice began while I was in grade school. In addition to listening to my dad say, as he walked out the door to go vote every time, nuestro voto es nuestra voz. Our vote is our voice. I also recall every day saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And there were 6 words that so resonated with my soul. Please say these words silently to yourselves. I ask you to please reflect or think about what these words, especially justice for all, really mean to you. What would our schools, our policies, our lives, and the lives of others look like if we lived these 3 words fully? These are hallowed words, not hollow words to me. And justice for all has been the focus of all of my work, whether in state, federal government, the nonprofit world, or as a community activist. 1973 was a significant year for me. I was a junior in high school, Minidoka County High School in Rupert. It had been 3 years that our family arrived in Idaho. My brothers and I still worked in the fields during the summer, as I did that up until the summer before I went to college. But 1973, that summer, I had the opportunity to get an office job with air conditioning. Just for a few weeks, because it was a 6-week program, but I was so excited about that. And that work was with the Migrant Education Summer Program at East Minico Junior High in Rupert, Idaho. While I had no office experience at all, there was someone who believed in me, and that was Mr. Gene Snap, who hired me. He later went on to be the superintendent of the Minidoka County School District. The exciting thing about beyond the air-conditioned office was to be able to meet Terry Riley and his wife, Rosie. She was teaching with that program that summer, and he would be there every day helping. During the fall, Terry was organizing farm workers in the Minnecaja area to establish a health clinic for farm workers. Farm workers, till this day, aren't covered by medical insurance, health insurance. So a clinic had already been established in Nampa out of the Riley's home, and Terry was trying to establish a clinic for farm workers in Burley. We didn't succeed, but if you're from the Treasure Valley, you can see all of the Terry Riley clinics. Not only health medical services, but dental and mental health services are provided there. This community activist work with Terry was a defining moment for me. It sparked my Justice for All passion that has driven me for so many years. Fast forward to 1979. I'm living in Ogden, Utah, going to school at Weber State, plus working at Weber State. It was during that period that I saw the film And Justice for All. That movie lit my desire to go to law school. I wanted to be an attorney just like the character portrayed by Al Pacino. I wanted to challenge systems and ensure that underrepresented individuals and those that did not have the resources could still get the best attorney. And then it was working with the Migrant Farm Workers Law Unit right after that, coming to Burley, Twin Falls, and Caldwell. That's what fully ignited my Justice for All passion. My work as an outreach worker, as a paralegal, handling a caseload, going to administrative hearings on behalf of farm workers, led me to taking the LSAT in 1988. For personal reasons, I did not attend law school, but we do have a lawyer in the family now. As a certified court interpreter, however, I have spent many hours, years in the courtroom. I have worked for several law firms, not only in Idaho, but throughout the country. My work at the state level as the farm worker advocate provided me the opportunity to use both federal and state laws to advocate for farm workers and the injustices that they continue to experience until today. Low wages, dangerous working conditions, exploitive practices, health and safety violations, and being excluded from many federal and state laws that other workers are included in. I mentioned earlier, right, the difference between child labor laws in ag versus non-ag. Can you believe it was not until 1981 that Idaho, and this was a result of many people working towards this, Idaho passed the law to provide porta potties in the fields for farm workers. It wasn't until 1987 that the federal law came about for porta potties, potable drinking water, and hand washing facilities. I remember coming to Idaho, and the sugar beets were that tall, and I'm a teenager, and the first thing I do is look around. Okay, when I need to go, where do I go, right? That I would have some privacy, and how humiliating that is, you know, for our brothers and sisters that work the fields of this country. I was so passionate about farm worker advocacy that while I was at the Department of Employment, I risked it all for 15 farm workers who were being mistreated, who were being held prisoner in a farm outside of Mountain Home. They had to escape like at midnight to meet up with me to tell me what was going on in that farm. I thought my dad would understand as to why I did what I did on behalf of those farm workers. My dad, who his example taught me integrity. But even my dad said, "What are you doing, honey? Why couldn't you stay quiet?" I was demoted as I fought and advocated for these farm workers. My dad was fearful that someone would be in that role that would not be as passionate and supportive of farm workers. I remember telling my dad, had it been one farm worker, Dad, I would have done the exact same thing. If I had to make that decision today, I would do the same thing, to stand up for what is right and just, no matter the cost. The workers were contracted from Mexico. The farmer was very connected to the governor. And later I thought, yes, what was I thinking? The little former farm worker, brown woman going up against this great power. But it was my job to advocate for farm workers, and I was going to do that job no matter what. Sometimes integrity costs you something. Sometimes speaking up costs you something. What is the cost, though, of staying silent? If there is a legacy I leave in Idaho, it is spearheading the development of a plan to bring about legislative changes for farm workers. 12 years of many individuals, students, and organizations at various levels to make legislative changes that led to 3 wins. on behalf of farm workers in Idaho laws to make a difference for them and their families. The first one was including at-workers in Idaho's workers' compensation law. The second one was including ag workers in Idaho's minimum wage law. And the third one was the registration and bonding of farm labor contractors. The first one would guarantee that when workers suffered an injury in the workplace, they would be entitled to some benefits because they would have insurance coverage. The second one would ensure that even if they were paying by the piece rate, that they were guaranteed at least the minimum wage. And there were situations while we were in this fight that farm workers were getting paid 50 cents an hour, $1.50 an hour. Can you imagine that happening now? Even though it was a great win, I remember crying because all of that work to include them with a guarantee of minimum wage, all it was ensuring that they were entitled to a poverty wage. And the third law would require farm labor contractors to register and to deposit a bond. So if they didn't pay the farm workers could still get their pay from that bond that was deposited with the Idaho Department of Labor. One of the things that I did as an 8th grader in Texas was work behind the scenes in campaigns. I remember, last thing I did before coming to Idaho was ensuring that Delia Valderas was the student body president at Austin Junior High. In 1993, I decided that my role as a mom was more important than the position I was offered in Washington, D.C. during the Clinton administration, alongside two amazing Latinas. The first, Maria Chaveste, who had been appointed by the president to lead the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour. And later she became Deputy Chief of Staff at the White House and his presidential advisor. The second, Alicia Fernandez Mott, the National Farm Worker Advocate. At that time, my oldest daughter, Andrea, who is in the audience, was to be a high school senior. And she had no intention of moving during her last year of high school. While we had an option of who she could stay with in Idaho to finish her last year, I held to what I had always told my 3 daughters. They, not my career, were my priority. Even though I needed my career to support us. I was a single mom at that time. But the personal benefit of staying in Idaho was enjoying that last senior year with my daughter, watching her go to prom, do all of those fun things that seniors do. On the professional side, staying in Idaho provided me the opportunity to play a role in Governor Andrus's decision to appoint Sergio Gutierrez as district judge. Within days of Sergio's appointment, we began campaign strategy. The election would take place less than 6 months after Governor Andrus's appointment. And like Governor Andrus had told me, Sergio would have an opponent. The governor asked me 3 times to guarantee to him that Sergio would win the election. My response, Governor, you know my work ethic and you know my standard. We will work at 150%. He asked me the same question 3 times. My response was same response 3 times. That conversation with the governor, with the former governor, is one of the most important ones I had with him. I was grateful for the opportunity to co-manage Sergio's judicial campaign, a successful one. Later, Sergio would be appointed to the Court of Appeals by Governor Kempthorne. Sergio has been my best boss and mentor at Legal Services. He has provided so much support professionally and personally, not only to me, but to my girls. One of my standards has been never to ask someone to do something I myself am not willing to do. In 2006, I was elected as Canyon County Democrats chair. One of my responsibilities as chair was to recruit candidates. Given my standard, how could I possibly be asking individuals to do something as challenging as to run for political office when I myself had not done it? This led to my being a writing candidate for Canyon County Commissioner when I could not and we could not identify someone who was willing to run in that vacant seat. In 2007, I ran for Nampa School District Board of Trustees. Didn't win either of these elections. I know my youngest daughter was really upset that how could the person that got 23 votes or 13 votes and I got 99 could get a position and I wasn't getting the position. I had to explain to Marisa, it wasn't, by who got the most votes, it was by zones, right? And so that's why I did not win. In 2010, I ran my first legislative race. This was one of 4 legislative races because representation is critical at all levels. I chose to trailblaze, starting with 3 strikes against me. I think Marisol kind of alluded to that. I'm a woman of color, I'm a progressive or a liberal, like labeled in Idaho many times, and I was in a conservative district, county, state, but I chose to run to provide opportunities to involve, include, mentor, teach women, especially young women, Latinos, and youth. Often, those opportunities are not available for us to demonstrate the great work that we have the ability to do, especially in politics. As a member of Idaho's largest ethnic group and a resident of Idaho for over 50 years, I have worked to bring about changes I believe are important to Idaho, including Latinos and more specifically Latinas holding office at every level of Idaho government. While I had committed to only do it 3 times, in 2016, a young woman who is in the audience today and is just like one of my daughters. I have so many adopted daughters, but Vera holds number 5 place after my own 4. She asked me to run a 4th time. I asked her, give me one good reason I should do that. And her response was, quote, I want to be your campaign manager. I want to manage your campaign, end quote. I could not say no, even though Marisa, my youngest, said, Mother, please do not do it. Her argument was, I'm graduating high school, I'm leaving the state to go to college, I'm not gonna be around to help you, and Mother, you do not know how to do things 100%, especially when it comes to community organizing and campaigning. You gotta perform at 125 to 150%. I didn't listen to her. I'm grateful to everyone that contributed to my campaigns on those 4 runs. There is especially one young woman that co-chaired, fundraised, door-knocked for me. She's an amazing Latina and an amazing educator, and now an amazing legislator, and that is Dr. Sonia Galaviz. I am grateful that she serves at the state legislature. 1 Latina out of 105 legislators. At the state capital, in my view, is not enough. Idaho's Latinos population is 14%. We have the greatest concentration here in the Treasure Valley, Canyon and Ada County. In the country, there's less than 2% Latino elected officials. There is much work for us to do, not only in Idaho, but in the country. I mentioned my youngest daughter, Marisa, and you met Marisol during the introduction, but I am the mother of 4 daughters and several, like I mentioned, adopted daughters. My girls have sacrificed so much of my time over the years. They have been so supportive in my work to make a difference. Often, like Marisol expressed, right, they have helped me in my campaign with Latino Vote, with the issues for farm workers. When they come, they know that sometimes it's to work alongside their mom. I so appreciate their support, and I love them very much. Marisol recently shared these words. I grew up watching my mom mentor many young women at Boise State. One vivid memory I have is when Lisa Sanchez and Diana Garza, now Dr. Garza, came to film a video of 3 generations of women for a university project that included my mother, her mom, and the 3 of us. I also remember my mom talking about taking this student or that mentee to lunch. This was at a time when doing this was a sacrifice. My mom, to devote time and money to others as she was raising 3 girls on her own. But my mom always saw the importance of supporting and giving back to others, especially youth, women, and farm workers. There are 2 significant stories I want to share where students or mentees taught me lessons. The first one is the young woman who's not so young and is in the audience today too, Lisa, a former City of Boise councilwoman and currently a Boise City Council candidate. She had gone to intern in New Mexico during the summer, and she bought this beautiful gift. It was a piece of artwork of an indigenous woman weaving at a loom. Lisa shared, when I saw it, I knew it was the perfect gift for you. I was a little puzzled and quite couldn't figure it out. Someone that I was very close at the time said, Maria, it's because you are a weaver. Another young woman and former Boise State student, now working on her PhD at U of U, framed it as follows, quote, those of us who are part of the tapestry that Maria has tirelessly woven over the years remain to love and be loved by Idaho's Latino community. And the book, Nosotras, invites its readers into that tapestry. Who are the weavers in your life? And who's part of your tapestry? The second story is a woman that was working on a project here at Boise State for one of her classes in 2017. As she interviewed me to ask me about my passion about working, teaching, mentoring students, she concluded that I had become the person, the teacher, the mentor that I so wanted and needed when I was navigating through school, academics, and my career. We are often leading by example and do not even realize it. We do the work and often overlook how valuable and worthwhile our contributions are to many, or perhaps just one. As I prepared to work on presenting to you today, I thought about one of the sections that I taught in the University Success 101 camp class that I taught. For those of you that don't know what CAMP is, it stands for College Assistance Migrant Program. It is a program that has been federally funded to provide funds for farm workers and or their children to pursue a higher education. Boise State was the first in Idaho in 1984 to receive such funds. This program has helped hundreds of students pursue and complete not only a bachelor's degree, but master's, PhDs, and JDs. Unfortunately, as of June 30, 2025, Boise State will no longer receive these funds to do the great work they had been doing for 41 years on behalf of children and or farm workers. The section was developing a personal mission statement, and mine has been to serve others, especially women, youth, low-income Latinos, including farm workers and immigrants. I continue to do this work through my small business, Power of Translation, and my community work and volunteerism. If you had a mission, if you had to write your personal mission in one sentence today, what would it be? I have taken the intelligence, talents, and knowledge I have been blessed with to work on making things better for others. The two mottos that guide me are saber es poder and querer es poder. Saber es poder is knowledge is power. Querer es poder is where there's a will, there's a way. But I like the literal translation of querer es poder. To love, desire, is power. I read a book recently by a doctor, pioneer in her own time, because she's 102 when she wrote this book, Dr. Gladys McGarry, and she's 103 right now. She shares that the most powerful medicine in the world is love. And given what's happening right now, we must love one another, have compassion, mercy, understanding for others. I want to share Waldo Emerson, who's one of my favorite philosophers, poets, his words. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a little bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Take a breath. Which line speaks to you most today? In closing, because I always like us to take some action, how are you, or will you, continue to leave the world a bit better? What social condition or conditions are you passionate about and are or will continue to work on? Are we or will we maximize our talents, time, and treasure to ensure that what will truly make a difference for all, not just some, not just many, but for all, and that we achieve justice for all in Idaho and in the country becomes reality? Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Maria. I'm sure some of you have questions. Go ahead and hold them up, and our wonderful volunteers will run through the room and pick those up. But I would like to start with a question about your company. You mentioned it at the end, but the name of your translation firm is The Power of Translation. So can you tell me what it's like to go to hear one language and to speak the other? And to sit in a courtroom and immediately flip that switch to another language and the high pressure of a court situation. And if you get a chance, also, what's your favorite event to translate to? Because I know you do beyond the court. You do
yes.
Events.
I think that one of my favorites. I'll start with that one because that's the easy one. I have the privilege and honor to actually come during new student orientation at Boise State and interpret because there are parents. I talked about my dad, that even though they're proficient at a certain level, much more comfortable with a lot of topics, right? So that's one of my favorites. Definitely my other is when I interpret. College of Western Idaho has contracted me for years to interpret at their graduations. Oh my gosh, there is so much power. in those graduations. And then when I'm invited to interpret at high school graduations. I think education, like I said, saber es poder, knowledge is power. I do believe education is a great equalizer. And so anything, I've done so much pro bono work, right? I'm worth a lot of money, but I'm willing to do it for free, right? When nonprofit organizations don't have it in their budgets, but they want to do what's right and what's good. In the courtroom, it does take, I think that it's a gift. It's a gift that I think that I got from God. I believe in God. I'm a woman of faith. It's a gift. My first translation or interpretation job was on that first trip from Texas to Illinois, that we didn't have that much money to make that trip. And the axle in that 1959 station wagon broke at about Houston. And then the axle completely broke because we could hear a noise. My brother, my oldest brother, would not do it, even though my dad was trying to force him to interpret. He says, I don't know enough English to be able to do this, right? Because it was dealing with a mechanic and dealing with a tow truck and all of that. But that was my first interpretation job, was at the age of 10, to get us out of that crisis and having the farmer wire money through Western Union. And I'm negotiating all of this. When the farmer met me, Paul Zimmerman, I talked about Zimmerman Farms, he says, you're the one that was managing, negotiating all of that? I thought you were older, you're just a little girl, which I was. So in the courtroom, we're like kind of lawyers. I've got to do continuing ed every year. I've got to take courses. I've got to keep practicing to get good. But basically, one of the clerks recently told me, gosh, Maria, it looks like it's going in your ear and it's coming out your mouth. And that's basically what it is. And so I hear English, I switch to Spanish. I hear Spanish, I switch to English. And sometimes it can be funny when bilingual lawyers, mix it up, and then we mix it up. So we sometimes have good laughs, but it's pretty heavy duty, and it's intense. But I love, love, love what I do. So I interpret, written translation, and I do consultant work. That's what Power of Translation does.
Yes, thank you. A number of audience members want to know how they can support migrant students since Cuts to Camp have dissolved the program, essentially. So a number of questions are interested in supporting the educational opportunities and what the community can do.
Again, I think I talk about it in terms of time, talents, and treasure, right? One of the things about nosotras, all of the proceeds, the net proceeds, are being donated to the Idaho Latino Scholarship Foundation, right? Whether it's that you volunteer, whether it's we at the foundation say, now that camp is gone, it behooves us to raise more money for scholarships for needy students, right, that don't have the resources. Those dollars are really important because it's a barrier. I know it's a barrier for many, but definitely for low income, it's really a barrier. And we have amazing students. One of them is sitting right here in front, Ana Alvarez from Burley, Idaho, she aspires to be an immigration lawyer. So yeah, that's one way.
And the Latino Scholarship Fund is available for people to contribute to all the time.
Yes.
So this question asks about your dream for agricultural labor. So given the current events, what's the future of agricultural labor, and also what's your dream, and how can non-ag workers and non-immigrants support them?
Yes. Yeah, that one's a really, really tough one. For sure, as the farm worker advocate at the state, right, it's almost like this double-edged sword, right? And if you read some of the stories in Nosotras, which is true about my own story too, right, there is dignity in that labor, and somebody's got to do it, right? Because we all love our vegetables, we love our fruits, and even when Immigration Reform Control Act of 1986, that thinning beets was being paid at $60 an acre, we were getting $30 an acre when I was doing it because it was paid by the piece. Fast forward to I'm already gone to college, I'm in the office. Even at $60 per acre, I would not go back to the fields, you know? I mean, that is because it is hard work, but someone has got to do that work, and looking at ensuring that there are protections for them. But one of the things I did at the Department of Employment was to let them know of training, education, et cetera, to get out of the fields, right? Because it doesn't pay very much, and it's hard. So the more policies, the more legislation that they can be. Idaho, unfortunately, still has one of the lowest minimum wage pay rates in the country. Oregon and Washington have the highest state minimum wage laws, right? So be aware, and you'll have my information. Please, please, please contact me, because I can steer you the right direction in how you can help if you really are serious about helping.
There's also questions about mentoring students and advocating for safety, so we'll put that in the category of follow-up as well. But one of the audience members wants to know if you've ever found a bakery as good as your dad's, and where they can go for pan dulce.
That is a great question. That's a great question, because the answer is no. And my dad, the beauty of my dad, and I'm so blessed that he's here at 93. My mom has been gone for 25 years, but that he has taught my one son-in-law. While my son-in-law was working on his PhD, he wanted to learn how to make the pan dulce. And then my son-in-law has taught his 3 sons to make the pan dulce. And so my dad still, his bread is still the best. If we go to San Antonio, to mi tierra, almost. When we go to Mexico, there in Monterrey, there's a panaderia, Las Margaritas, almost, but not quite, because my dad's is just so soft and fluffy, and it doesn't get hard, and the stuff on the top, the icing doesn't fall off of it. And my daughter that's sitting here in the audience, Abuelito, how do you do it? So he's been giving her tips of how to do it so that it turns out as good as his.
Wonderful.
So it's not going to be lost.
No, it's passed on, moving along. If Maria has mentored you, would you please stand up? I know Vera, who ran her last campaign, and Lisa Sanchez are here. Ana, the scholarship recipient, Marisol and Andrea, that is you as well. Please be recognized. And many of you have questions for Lisa about contributing to her campaign. The artwork that you saw on the slideshow was Vera's amazing work, so you should compliment her on that. And please join me in thanking Maria one final time.